Welcome to Mark Shafer Memorial Day, Memory Day. This is something we have had in our mind for a number of months, but now is the day that we are here to celebrate Mark's life and do a dedication. My name's Dave Neff. I'm with the Carnegie Museum Board, and one of the main projects that we wanted to get done in a timely manner was to have a dedication that we're going to do at this moment. And Mark always had his desk in this office over here, and there's no reason that we shouldn't have a naming of the Shafer Gallery. We have some presenters that are going to be here, and if people can see from where they are and you're set up, why don't we just stay here? I'd like to introduce Mark's brother, Herb Shafer. He's going to kick us off. Please.
All right. Thank you. It thrills me to see those words because I think there could be no greater honor to Mark than to see this as the Mark Shafer Gallery, although all of his brothers and all of his cousins knew that if they're going to talk to Mark, they had to come to where he was holding court, and it was always in this room where he was holding court. And you'd be privileged to hear a few stories, and he says, well, I'll just continue on what I'm working on here, but while we talk, look at this thing, and this thing over here. I want you to take note of that, and please also notice this other detail. And by the way, do you have a few minutes? Because we need to hang this thing in the other room, so that would just be okay. So, yes, what a great privilege it is to see that naming, and thank you to the to the museum here for that honor. I've been asked to say a few words about what Mark's interest was in history, and I've lived long enough that maybe I ought to know because I'm just about a clone of him as far as that's concerned. Our youngest brothers don't quite get it, and our youngest brother really thinks we're just a little daft with all of our focus on those old things. But there are four of us brothers, and the oldest three of us, and Mark is number one in that, spent our childhoods living in the home with our widowed grandfather. So our mother was an only child, and so our home was included. We thought our grandpa lived with us. We were never told that we actually lived with our grandpa. But what happened in that context was that he was the built-in babysitter. He loved to tell stories. He loved to tell his oldest grandchild about how to walk behind a horse and how to harness a horse, because Grandpa still had his team of horses, Dick and Dan, when Mark was little. And when Mark was a little older, he told me years later, he says, I loved going into the barn and smelling the smell of the horses that lingered on. And he even was pleased with himself when he could find a little horse manure to remind him that he had just a little touch of a former day. So that maybe is why he liked old stuff. Our home was full of generations of things that just never got moved out. But another reason why he liked those things is because he always felt as if we underappreciated the place where we lived. When Mark and Susan married, Mark spent one summer in Italy, and I was amazed at the woman he married that gave him the nod to go to spend that summer in Italy by himself. And what a great adventure that was for him. And what he seemed to discover in that time was that there are things about his hometown that really have some value. We had always thought that if you were not Philadelphia with Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell, you didn't have a buildings worth anything. And if Abraham Lincoln never spoke here, then there's nothing about history that matters for anything. Or if the Battle of Gettysburg didn't happen here, there was nothing historically significant that happened here. But I think for Mark, the beginning of that, I'm covering up a certain little item that's superimposed on this picture. One of his iconic pictures that he painted was one he called Venice of Iowa. And that summer of 1969, when he was in Venice, Italy, there were certain things about the landscape that reminded him of the landscape of downtown Fairfield and the courthouse in the background, that Romanesque and Italianate architectural designs, he said, there's something special about our hometown. And when he discovered that this is where he really wanted to be, he began to promote those things that told our story, that some important things really have happened here, and there are places of worth, and there are things of beauty that should be made as things of beauty. When Alexis de Tocqueville toured the United States in the 1830s, he noted that these Americans are busy, going, and doing, and everything they make must be useful. Well, the French thought things, if they're going to be useful, must also be beautiful, and I think Mark must be at least 1/64th French, because he always believed if you're going to do it, it must also be beautiful, and that's his signature here in this museum. So thank you for the greatest honor you could pay my brother, and thank you all, and he would be so pleased that you're here today. God bless.
I'm Lawrence Eyre. It's my honor to try to continue Mark's work. Grant Wood went to France, not Italy, for a whole year. And he said it was only after doing that that he knew why he should live in Iowa. So there must be something about artists and the patterns they see and the way life works in nature that make them want to be home. And that's what brought him back. And that's what Mark reminded me of when I joined the board here, that he had an eye, not just for seeing something beautiful, but for seeing what was underneath it. And it's certainly true that history has embedded within it the word story. And Mark had a feeling for story, told not just through words and not just through manuscripts, but through what we can see and sounds we can hear and textures that we can feel. And it was very clear every day that I visited with him or worked with Mark that all of those antennae were open and functioning the whole time. So it's been an honor for us to work there, to hear, and we're going to do our best to continue Mark's vision.
I'd like to give you a little background. Most of you have heard this before, so bear with me, but there are people that have not been in this facility before. So, Carnegie Historical Museum is the oldest Carnegie building west of the Mississippi River. It holds the distinction of being the fifth constructed in the entire system of over 1,400 museums and libraries throughout the entire country. And it was the first one that was built outside of Mr. Carnegie's hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Our museum has two separate boards, and we have representation at our gathering tonight from both boards. The first is the Carnegie Museum Foundation. It was organized to be the financial, the fiscal arm of the museum. They are the 501c3 entity that will receive donations and provide tax letters to those folks who wish to make a donation to this facility. They are the ones, and they apply for the grants and do the fundraising for this museum. They're also responsible for this physical building. When you see the cranes and the other things outside, and you know that they have regrouted and they're ready to put new grouting in, and then they're fixing this, and the steps were done, and before you know it, we're going to have new windows all the way around too. So lots of good things are happening to a building, and to our knowledge, this is the first time that the bricks have ever been refinished and redone in the entire length of the building since the mid-1800s on that. They're responsible for the physical building. Okay. Their board, Gloria Countryman, she was here. She had a commitment at the fair. Lori Fry is the treasurer or secretary. Jeff Johnson is the treasurer. Gay Chapman was here. She had to go to the fair. Brittany Tiller, Michael Parker, Steve Smith. Julie Johnson was here. Myself and John Morrissey. We have an ex officio member by the name of Ray Ham. This foundation meets on a quarterly basis with the ability to hold more frequent meetings as needed. We then have the Carnegie Museum Board, and they're the ones responsible for this collection that you see, for the upgrades that have taken place. The rotation of exhibits, the tours, the publicity, the outreach to the media through all of southeast Iowa. The board of directors consists of myself as president. Therese Kaminsky, who is here, is our secretary. Treasurer Joe Hunt, he is here today. We also have had Karen Price, who is moving back to the East Coast to take care of her parents. She's retiring from the board. Sean McCarty is here today. Sandy Gillespie. New members of Russ Cooper. I saw John Carlson earlier, but he had a fair commitment also. So a lot of people have to double time it because they're active and involved in the community. And then John Morrissey. We have Lawrence Eyre that you met a moment ago. Our assistant director and curator is Jake Schmidt. Our ex officio member is an old Parsons graduate that was a professor in a college in Nebraska. Her name is Kay McPherson Ferguson. She grew up in the Hedrick, Iowa area, but has a deep, deep interest in the history of here. She can't be with us. She's on the telephone with our meetings. She's right there. Okay, where are we going? Where are we today? Where are we going? The following tells the story of the growth of attendance and what have we seen over the past few years. I excerpted a lot of this. Jake Schmidt had an interview with The Source recently, and he hit on all the main points that I wanted. So I want to give credit not just to me, but to Jake on this. An underappreciated gem. I'm going to say that again. An underappreciated gem is right here. Carnegie Historical Museum, listed in the National Registry of Historic Places, has been enjoying a surge in visitor attendance. Its collections date back to 1876. I can't count back that far. I used to be a banker, and I used to be able to calculate, but I don't know, that's a long time ago. This is one of Iowa's 5 oldest museums in the entire state. Assistant Director and Curator Jake says in the past, we were averaging about 150 people a year. We've got over 50-some people here tonight. Many residents never realized that we had a Carnegie Museum in the old Carnegie Library. Just off the square, many people thought, it was a library and they moved to another location. Indian Hills moved in. There's nothing. Well, sorry, but that's not the case. But in November of 2021, this place took off, Schmidt says, and added, last year, 2022, we had over 2,400 attendees, people that came through the doors, 2,400. He tells us now that we're not even at the end of June, and we have eclipsed 2,400 for 2023. Folks, this is a happening place. It's alive, it's vital, and your support has made it possible. We have volunteers. I got a smile right here, and we've worked with her on a Saturday morning. Alita, thank you very much for being a part of it on there. Okay, the museum has been re-educating people about its existence with open houses, special events. We find that First Friday art walks gather a lot of people in town, and so we try and do something special for that. Directly behind where Herb is over here, we are a year and a half into celebrating heritage farms and century farms. 150 years in the same lineage, in the same family. 100 years in the same family. And every month we have a fresh one, and we kick it off at the First Friday Art Walk on that. We've been fortunate in the partnership through the Iowa Travel Bureau, been advertising across the state, and for whatever reason the secret is out. The Carnegie Museum is just drawing record crowds. Schmidt says it's full speed ahead. Fasten your seatbelts, folks, because we gotta step it up a little bit here. Our publicity in the past has only been to Fairfield and its immediate area with our radio and newspaper. We are now reaching out. We've had reporters from the Cedar Rapids Gazette that have been here. We send information to the Burlington Hawkeye. Washington gets radio station thing. Mount Pleasant, Ottumwa, our press releases goes to 2 TV stations and a group of radio stations. So people in southeast Iowa know things are happening here at the Carnegie. We have Fairfield High School class reunions that they're scheduled to come through this summer when they come back. The boardroom area downstairs serves as a place for people to come and meet if they have a need for it. During open hours, we have sometimes the Kiwanis Club, the Lions Club, Elks Lodge, PEO chapters that the ladies attend can use that as a meeting room. It just gets a lot of people inside the door, Jake says, and gets them used to the building. A lot of people have forgotten about us. Getting them to take advantage of the space reminds them of what they learned when they were young, and all they remember is the bison when they come up the stairway. And it's still there. That's one of the things we did during COVID. We took it down, we had a taxidermist go through and freshen it, the eyes glisten, and one eye will even follow you when you go up the stairway, so be careful on there. The City Museum Board's directly involved by volunteering to assist on Saturdays and host these community members and guests to get a closer look at this. Those of you that came early had a chance to participate in some wonderful food over here. Susan, Herb, Joe, thank you all for contributing to make that available for our guests today. We appreciate it. There are some other people that might have a memory, maybe a 2-minute memory that they would like to share of Mark, whether you're a brother, a sister, a student, anybody else that would like to share, but Werner is here. You'll be in posterity. You know, your great can look at you later on. So I would open the microphone for anyone who would like to come up and share. I think Joe Hunt is coming this way. So Joe, please come ahead.
Hello, thank you all for coming tonight. I just want to briefly give you a few words of wisdom that I picked up from Mark over the years. I first knew him probably in 9th grade. He was a year ahead of me in school. And then later on, probably 50 years later, he gave me a call one day and asked me to come in and help him identify an old photo album. And the next thing you know, I'm on the board, and we're just having a lot of fun. But one of the interesting things you probably don't know too much about is that there was, out of the board members and different people who worked here, there was a very elite group of, at this point, gentlemen, probably 5 or 6, I think, was in the group. And some of the fellas, after certain activities at the museum, after a hard day's work, they'd get together, and this is before I was on the board. I'm a newbie in the group, okay? So anyway, apparently how it would work was that the group was called the Templeton Templars, and the basic purpose, it was twofold. Basic purpose was to get together and have a little camaraderie. And at that point in time when it started, the Templeton Distillery up in Templeton, Iowa, got started. So someone decided to get a bottle, and next thing you know, we're having these meetings every month, except for the summer. And we would get together and have treats and a little bit of Templeton and solve a lot of problems of the world, the state of Iowa, and the Fairfield community. And we continue doing it today because we have a strong conviction for promoting the Iowa economy, keeping it in Fairfield, at Templeton's, and so forth. So anyway, it was always great times with Mark, and had a lot of fun, solved a lot of problems, but nobody would remember him the next day. But anyway, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Susan's brother, and I got a few stories about Mark. But the favorite story, maybe she doesn't even want to tell the story. But we were one of 5 kids in our family, and I was the last one in the family to move out of the house. Everybody else was in college or married or whatever. And one school night, a Wednesday night, Tuesday night, I don't know what it was, the phone rang, and I was in 8th grade maybe, and I answered the phone, and it was Susan. You don't want me to tell the story, do you? And you don't. And she said, Art, it's Susan. By the way, I'm married. I went, oh my God, this is great. And I said, Mom, you got to hear this. And so they had this discussion, and Mom required this, and Mom required that, and I remember Mark is a great storyteller. He was a great storyteller. They both could, talk a lot, but Susan would talk probably more than Mark. But whenever Mark had something to say, he'd go, Susan, I'm talking. That's about all I have to say.
Is there anyone here from the Art Association that would like to come up and say a few words, please? I know that wasn't on the invitation, but I saw you come through the door.
I had no idea that I would be doing this.
You have to fill both rooms.
Okay. Mark was, as I said in his eulogy, a masterpiece, in that he knew everything. He knew everything about everything, and he was always there to help out, think of things, call me, have great ideas. This place is representative of what he loved and did, and the art also for the Art Association. He was a founding board member in 1966 when he was still in high school. He was a continuous member up until the time he passed away, and a wonderful artist, talent, and friend.
Everyone knows that Mark was a wonderful artist, but I don't think a lot of people know that I worked with him for 6 years at the middle school, and we worked with severely handicapped children. And he was amazing. He was amazing with those children. And I just wanted to mention that because he gave them a lot of love and a lot of care.
Hi, my name is Sally Johnston, and I'm really glad that Mark married Susan, but he was kind of my sweetheart in elementary school. I went to Lincoln School, which is now gone, especially the building we went to has been gone for quite a while. And Mark moved in, I believe, in 5th grade, in from country school, and I was in 6th grade, but we just immediately hit it off. And we seemed to have a lot of the same interests and the same sense of humor, and just were always, always, always dear friends. In high school, we both were involved in drama and in several plays together. And one evening, we were sitting at rehearsal, and I say sitting. We must have had small parts because we weren't on stage. We were out in the auditorium doing what Mary Jane Williams used to yell at us for, which was talking. And I was rather enamored of this young man back here at that time. So we were talking about the high school football players and the team and how they were doing and how I thought football players were wonderful. And he pulls out his paper and his black pen and sketched me an absolutely gorgeous Tommy Trojan. And I still have that. And it's framed, and it's never going anywhere unless maybe I decide to, what'd you say, copyright it or whatever, and offer it to the school for their Tommy Trojan history or something. But anyway, Mark and I were always, always, always friends and always shared very, very willingly both ways, and I miss him dreadfully.
Look down this road. John Morrissey. John Morrissey will step up to the mic, please.
Yeah, I want to second what Susan said from the Art Association. Mark is responsible, along with everybody else that works with the museum, volunteering and on the boards, but for the way things are shown up here. This place has what I call flair, and that's Mark, that's flair. I've had different events over the years and been involved with different things, and when Mark was involved, you could expect the unexpected. And Mark would step out of the way and get into something deeper than anybody else that went to the event. One year we were having a St. Patty's, and Mark showed up dressed in full vestments as an Irish bishop. That's not an exaggeration. He'd made the arrangements with the parish and everything else to do that. I think the Pope gave him a dispensation. But anyway, Mark was that kind of guy. He just, you never knew quite what else you were going to see as far as the collections around here. But, place by place, everything from the backstop there with an Indian butte that's painted on the walls and that kind of stuff. That's all part of Mark's flair. And it's going to stay with us for decades into the future. And people are probably at some point, they're going to lose track of all of us and Mark and so forth. But it's still going to be there. It's going to be staring at you. And it's going to be Mark. So this place will be around 100 years from now. None of us will be, but Mark will still have an impact on it. So that's my 2 cents worth, okay?
I'm looking through the glass looking case, and I see a former colleague teacher that was very much engaged in vocal music while Mark was involved in art. Linda Mitchelltree, would you be willing to share a moment with us, please?
Well, I didn't have a lot to do with the museum, but I got a first-hand accounting of everything that was going on at the museum. Mark and I taught at the school art room, music room, below sea level, as it were. We were the only people on our floor. And he always, whenever he had something special, he had to show it. I can remember him being at my house and recruiting me if I ever wanted to get rid of my glass windows. His brother was in the looking for older glass for his home. But there's just no description for his passion and for his passion about history. And Herb was right when he said that he's along those lines also. But he would come up and say, now, do you remember when I told you this? Well, now we found this, and then this was here, and this was in our chicken coop, and it all goes together. So I saw a video of Herb speaking at Nancy Yancey's grave, and I just remember seeing that exhibit and hearing him talk about it. But he recruited a lot of donations from people through his knowing, about everything else. And he was a consummate educator. It wasn't just the people in the museum, but all the kids in Fairfield benefited from that. And we all do miss him.
I'm trying to look for other smiles down here that haven't been up. Is there anyone else that would like to have an opportunity? Mrs. Crossland, if you would, please.
So I'm Karen Crossland, and I remember Mark from church. He was a man of such deep faith, and if you look at a lot of his paintings and his drawings, the detail that he would bring in, about our Blessed Mother or about Jesus, it was just beautiful. And so that's what I will always remember Mark for, was his deep faith.
Last call, West Room. Last call, South. Last call, East. One more.
One more?
Please.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Cynthia Milford, and I'm envious of you guys. Oh, hi, Dave. Because you had a lifetime to grow up with this man. I only had a few moments by him. I'm representing the Steampunk Society of Southeastern Iowa. I'm sorry, I'm getting like... It was a day that he was working in the museum, as always, and, he had a big old table over there, and all day he was sitting working at his table, and at the same time, we enjoyed the museum because this is the best I could do for morning, but we enjoyed the museum, and we did some photo shoots. Then we got to the parlor. And now that I hear about his background in theater and the type of person he was, he helped direct us in there and allowed us to touch the artifacts. Dave can attest to this. He did what did you do, an honor thing with the guns? So when I heard about this, I just had to show up, and especially the parlor room. It'll always mean so much to me. Thank you all, and yeah.
Let's take a moment and bow our heads, please. Dear Lord, thank you for allowing Mark Shafer to be part of each of our lives. Each of us has a memory, each of us has a story, some told and untold, but we were blessed by you to allow Mark to be part of our lives and the legacy that he leaves for our community with this facility and all the memories that go before it. Thank you, dear Lord, for all the blessings we take for granted and those that we do not. Amen. There's still food if you didn't have a chance. I know people have to get to the fair and other things, but our goal was 5:30, and that's where we are. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.